here, but I suppose only time will tell. We're on Consulate. This is less explored territory than a map like Clubhouse, than a map like Villa. So I think a lot of the expectations we have, maybe not throw them out the window, but you don't have to keep them as close as you had maybe initially. We'll get into our operator bans though and see
Oh,
what kind of Consulate we've got on the board here. And we're starting off with a spicy one. The Thermite taken off the board. That is not a ban I don't know if we've seen at all this stage at all. I mean, between both groups.
I I want to say, just off first instinct without checking stats, I want to say you're right, and the Thatcher will follow. Of course, Thatcher being very normal. Thermite. Now, there's only really one site where you use Thermite ever, and that is Garage. You don't use them on the top floor because, I mean, what are you going to Thermite? The long wall? Like, that's suicide. You're not going to be using it on Lobby because, I mean, the same thing, there's just the Thermite there. You're not going to really be using it on Archives Tellers because, again, there's not a lot to hard breach there. So, Garage, the avenues that you have to work with as an attacker are now way, way smaller. Unless you're able to double up those ace charges, I guess, you can kind of have almost a Thermite-sized hole. I would imagine maybe we see Ace and Hibana both being brought every round. That's kind of my knee-jerk reaction. Well, I guess we'll see what the Pioneers decide to bring, and it will, in fact, only be the Hibana.
I mean, if we're still talking operator bans here, one more thing to note. Mira is still left on the board. Someone who is
Hmm.
extremely powerful on Consulate. Pretty much every single site will see a Mira being played. Downstairs in Garage, for one. You go to that first floor, you go to lobby and press room, putting one in the bathroom. That's generally a pretty common position. Upstairs, that's where maybe we won't see the Mira in play at all. But she is extremely powerful on this map across the board. So seeing her up in play will be interesting. For sure. Of course, favoring the Maestro and the Valkyrie bans is completely understandable. Valkyrie is really your only defensive, I'd say saving grace when it comes to the window repel simulator that this map can often become. You just jump outside with some Valk Cam intel and there you go. You've got a bunch of frags on defense. And same thing goes for the Maestro. Intel, but a different way. Plant denial, very effective on that Garage site, especially. They will not be a factor at all this Consulate iteration. So it'll be curious to see exactly how we get things going in round number one. And we've got a bunch of unique operator selections to boot. We've got the Warden coming out from Giddy. We've got the Zero coming out from Wimpy. I mean, a good bit of variation here to start things off. Late registration, they're going to kick things off downstairs on Garage and Cafeteria.
Yeah, and it looks like the Warden pick from Giddy was likely because the Pioneers had showed the Ying before sixthing off of it. So, late reg, I guess they figure, better safe than sorry, but they'll go for a much more standard lineup. You do see on this map, people are starting to lean into the Zero a little bit more over the Nomad. While Nomad is very good, I guess, taking out the Valkyrie means there's going to be significantly less outside attempts from the defenders, so you don't necessarily need that Nomad if you just have someone, on the Zero cams. Plus, with there being a Mira on the boards, something that Zero can do is actually clear those Mira windows if you can get a camera in the right spot. And you can already see Wimpy setting up those flank cams. They're a lot harder to see than the air jabs as well, and they don't make that little chirping sound. So you hide them a lot better too. On a map like Consulate, you want as many eyes around the map as possible.
Well, Consulate has always been a map that is very roam dependent. It's very map control dependent, and defensive teams generally prioritize that, but late registration hasn't stopped KCP from getting in the building. In fact, they haven't stopped them from establishing vertical play already onto the Garage site. One element remains in play, however, and that is going to be Fish. Tucked carefully upstairs in meeting. Projector now just trying to creep around and avoid any lurking KCP player, but Diaz is more than ready for that, and Fish will walk right into his crosshairs. Opening pick going the way of this attacking team. Combine that with the intel they have from the Zero cams that you already highlighted, Harrison, and they should know that they've got the entire map cleared other than this basement floor. Now it just comes down to focusing on the vertical, exploiting any weaknesses you can here, and just you can see the C4s now wasted. All three of them from late registration have been used. That is a lot of utility that you're not going to have for that plant that you'd really like to have back. You're now going to have to rely on those 3 toxic smokes from Vivid.
Oh, this is good from Wimpy too. The zero cams go through reinforcements, and you can use it on that hatch. Another thing with the zero is he brings a hard breach charge, so Jolton can focus all of his Abana pellets on the wall, and they can still get that bathroom hatch open and cut off the middle of the site. Plant will go down by White Van, but as you had highlighted, all those C4s are already expended. There's nothing that the defenders have other than those gas canisters, and they all missed. Viv was unable to deny. Now it's a 5v4 post-plant. The attackers have every single man still up, and now they have a 3-man advantage as the bodies on the site start to fall. Kitty gets 1 kill through the hatch as the Warden, but is that going to be enough? He and Vivid need to retake, and you can see the Pioneers members, they're starting to come far afield. Gomez will get 1 onto Giddy, but Vivid refrags, still in a 1v3. A man upstairs, 1 on yellow, I believe 1 even outside. This is already one of the hardest retakes in the game, and it's going to be impossible for Vivid. The Pioneers take round number 1.
Honestly, a fantastic attack from KCP. I mean, that was clean. They had their checklist pretty much preset as they came into that map, and they rolled through it with lightning efficiency. And the 1 roamer, generally we'll see more of those, but in this case, only 1 roamer from late registration. Fish was unable to do anything because Diaz was on the hunt. Just sat in B2, that top floor bathroom, for a good minute and a half, just waiting for Fish to make his move, and by the time that he did, Diaz was ready, and he shut him down. So an excellent play all around from KCP, but more so late registration, I've got to fault their use of those nitro cells. The garage site, like you said in that round, Harrison, the retake is the hardest retake in the game, bar none. You put a player outside anywhere, in the grapes, behind a car, somewhere deep outside, you can look at that diffuser and cover it from being diffused by the defense during that retake. Late registration, they have to be a little bit more disciplined with those C4s. They used all of them, hoping to get the kill onto the sledge above, who was, doing a great job eluding every single C4 that was tossed on up. Yes, I get the fact you want to find those kills. You want to secure the vertical play a little bit quicker if you're on that defensive side. It sucks being downstairs and have someone bearing down on your head, but you've got to be more disciplined and save those for when you need them the most, when that plant is actually going down.
Yeah, they were actually, I don't know, I think 2 of them? One or 2 were pre-placed. We definitely saw 1. I wasn't sure about the second. And it was just way too late to the draw as well. I mean, if you clicked it earlier, maybe that could have been a kill. That would have been the sledge, too. We saw how much work Inrio did that round. But, yeah, I definitely agree. But now that they have the pulse, perhaps that's issue is going to be alleviated somewhat, because now they have that hard intel that Giddy can provide. So their C4s don't necessarily have to be pre-placed, and if they are pre-placed, they'll no longer be guessing. Giddy can say, all right, blow it now when someone walks over it, and there you go. Potentially free pick. Wimpy once again on the 0, setting up pretty similar cams. I don't believe any of them ever got shot out, and they should see Fish. So Wimpy pre-firing over, that's going to prompt Fish to fall back. Wimpy's even got one, for that little hatch angle he had was also very creative. And so far, the Pioneers seem to be doing their due diligence just as they did in the previous round. Fish already falling back to the site. All 5 men of the defense now in the basement.
I think Fish is making a pretty smart adjustment here. He knew how diligent KCP were in clearing him out last time. We can see Diaz doing exactly that right now, just droning out that top floor, figuring out if there's somebody tucked up here. This time it's Arrow C4, and it will connect perfectly. Thrown up through that impact hole, and that is going to land right on the head of Inrio and finish off the sledge, finding the kill that late registration were desperate for the entire round number 1. Fish will continue actually going for a retake of this first floor. He'll get the next one, that onto Gomez, but eventually traded out in kind. Good job from Wimpy there to make sure that at least the second kill didn't go unpunished. But now late registration are sitting pretty. They've got all the intel because Giddy is still alive. They don't have to worry about any vertical destruction because the sledge, he was killed a lot sooner than Inrio would have liked. Late registration, they can sit back. They can now save those 3 toxic smokes. They can now save that last C4 that Bear has in pocket, and they can wait until Jolton wants to get that bomb down.
Wimpy clearing back White. Something else we see now is the Cade. Another beautiful adjustment from the defense, and that denies the control of the bathroom hatch. Giddy peeking the angle that Wimpy just made. Curious positioning there from the 0. He'll kind of just give up his life for free. Now it's just Diaz and Jolton. Bear, exposing himself to yellow stairs, will give up his life for free, and now it's only a one-man advantage for the defense. Diaz looking to maybe climb down the Visa stairs, but his pressure's been alleviated. Jolton gets that kill, but he's refragged. That leaves it all up to the Iana. Giddy attempting to find the frag. It's a little bit late, but eventually Vivid will come to his aid and put the Iana down in the crossfire. Very well adjusted from late registration. The Cade pick doing wonders to prevent that control, as well as those C4s finally finding their mark.
Nitro Cell plays like that. I was thinking this during our post analysis in round number 1. Like, that kind of play, it's something we either compliment you for or we flame you for it. And it really just depends on if it works out or not. Round number 1, it didn't. They wasted C4s and they got nothing for it. But in round number 2, that very same proactive use of the Nitro Cells saved the entire round. Yes, Fish found a really good kill. But aside from that, what made the defense so comfortable on that bottom floor was the lack of the breaching hammer and the sledge holes from above. That's how Wimpy ended up dying, because he didn't have a breaching hammer to work with. He only had that one secondary hard breach charge, so he had to peek that one hole if he wanted to contest vertically at all. And because there was only one hole, Giddy knew exactly where to look, silenced the zero, and all of a sudden, the defense has it all going in their way. I mean, it's just those minute details that can completely change the course of a round. And when vertical play is so impactful on a site, Garage on Consulate is probably the most iconic site when it comes to vertical destruction being essential to a victory. I mean, that's just the luck of the draw sometimes, and late registration will be happy to use that C4 performance to return this one to an even 1-1 score.
And speaking once again of that C4, Pulse will rear his head for the lobby defense. And what does that mean? Well, if you see a Pulse as the attackers on lobby, it probably means they're going to be playing downstairs. That's why all of Garage is reinforced, and that's why they're even supplemented by those mute jammers and even a mirror window inside of security. Late registration really want Giddy to stay down here for as long as humanly possible. Call out all that info for his team, and if a plant starts going down in piano, well, the Pulse can go ahead and put a stop to it. It looks like the Pioneers, though, they know exactly how important that Pulse is, and that seems to be the initial object of their desire. They want Giddy out of here, but at least for now, they're not really going to do much about it. It looked like they were setting up for the clear, but instead have sort of backed off to the rappels instead. Giddy's going to get a little bit aggressive on the Iana, but the drone spots him out, and Diaz is ready for it. But still, this is wasting a bit of time, and all of Pioneers are still preoccupied with the top floor. If they just leave this Pulse down there, that could definitely bite them in the late round.
Well, KCP are definitely making a good pivot here. They're now focusing all of that pressure that it looked like they were going to apply to Giddy. They're applying that to the top floor instead. So they've got now the vertical play once again, and it just comes down to using that effectively. So far, so good. Bear is going to get taken down by a really nice nade. That one from Diaz from the antechamber window, who's now going to rotate around and pressure that lobby double door. But for now, just assisting the teammates pressuring from above, making sure that every defender has to sit close, sit in those little tiny corners we know they're going to be tucked up in, because that allows those vertical players to predict those spots, to use them more effectively. And we can see that late registration, they're forced to scramble a little bit. Fish is now going to rotate down below, likely to assist Giddy in some sort of a retake. Arrow is off the site too. He's sitting here tucked close on yellow stairs. The site is very vulnerable right now. It just comes down to, does KCP identify this, and can they act upon it quick enough?
Well, the thing is, the site itself in terms of anchor game is vulnerable, but the reason why Arrow is downstairs is to likely tag team with that C4. Now, Giddy, whether he's wasted it or already put it down, it's largely going to be on this mute. Now, if the plant goes down in piano, they, of course, can just C4 up through the floor, but if it goes down in lobby, there's that hatch that they can play through. But Giddy is rotated all the way upstairs as all of the anchors fall. He gets one kill onto the sledge. No more vertical coverage. Jolton is going to have to rotate. The C4 will miss, but there's still this top coverage from the Pulse. Through bathroom, Arrow will spot the rotate, but he'll be unable about it, and as his only teammate falls, it puts him in a 1v4 clutch. Shooting the drone means they know exactly where he is. There's coverage from Yellow. He'll win the fight onto Wimpy, nearly not escape with his life, but it's still a 1 versus 3, and the attackers are slowly starting to back away towards their post-plant positions. Now, Arrow has significantly lit up most of the members of this roster, but it's a very slim angle being played by the Hibana, and the ACOG works its wonders. It's another round for the Pioneers.
A really good flexible attack from KCP there. So often we see teams, start with one plan, transition to another, and by the time they get ready to execute on that second plan, they've run out of time. They've run out of resources, and they're kind of stuck to flounder and actually fail eventually on their execute. But KCP did a really good job pivoting here. Their initial setup appeared to be geared towards that basement player, clearing out Giddy, but once they realized that maybe Giddy had a lot more support that they were expecting. The mirror window, the mute jammers, even, eventually Fish rotating around as the Aruni to support him. KCP said, you know what, let's not clear that out. We're going to go all the way upstairs, go straight to console office, begin the vertical, and pressure the site directly. Because sometimes, as counterintuitive as it may be, the best way to circumvent a roam and circumvent an extension is to push the site and force the defenders to rotate back in order to be effective. And that's kind of what KCP did here. Late registration, they were relying on those nitro cells again. They were relying on the intel that Giddy could provide. They hoped they could stop the plant from below, but KCP did a good job of being mobile, not getting that plant down until actually very late in the round. At that point, they had secured the site completely, gotten an overwhelming number of frags, and just the numbers game was so much in their favor that it didn't matter. Somebody was still below. They were going to win that round regardless.
Yeah, I like the adjustment from Pioneers, and I also just got to point the finger at how late Reg played around the Pulse, because they didn't. I mean, when it comes to Consulate, right, one of the strengths of Pulse on Consulate is not only, are there a lot of destructible floors, you can get the C4s and whatever, he can see all the way up to the top floor from basement. They had all the info in the world, and yet they didn't really play around it. The C4 was used way too early from Giddy. I'm not sure why he didn't save it for the plant, as most of the Pioneer pressure was, on the rappel and above in console office, meaning that it's probably going to be a piano plant. That's the only plant down there that you can directly deny through the floor. So Arrow, he was left alone. Why not just tag team below with the Pulse and the Mute, have the Mute use his C4 first, and have him be the one that rotates up? I don't know. A little bit confusing from late Reg, and already late Reg will forfeit the opening pick. Sure, Gomez, takes a beating for it, still come away with the life of Fish.
Yeah, Fish again trying to adjust that roam technique a little bit. In the first round, a little bit too aggressive, pivoted to less aggressive. Now we're back to a little bit more aggressive, and, well, we see how that worked out. Wimpy has been down, but he's outside, and he'll have no trouble getting picked back up by his teammate, and he'll be in this fight once again. Giddy has some intel as that Pulse, and we just saw a moment ago Arrow rotating around. It's in fact Giddy who will use that nitro cell instead, but a great shot from Wimpy will actually deny the C4 in the middle of the air. So that is a really good shot for hitting the aim labs, it seems, Wimpy. So a couple of members of KCP, they're definitely lit up here. As much as that is probably looking good to late registration, they're still down a man, and they still have a lot of ground to defend, with KCP slowly enveloping on this site. Inrio is now almost single-handedly taken this top floor control. Diaz joined him with a drone a moment ago. But Giddy is still playing below, content to use this heartbeat sensor until the end of this round, providing as much intel as possible. This is generally how we see this site go, but last time KCP made it work just fine, and right now it's working fine yet again. Jolton now getting this plant down. Doesn't seem like the late registration have any idea.
And it's going to go down for free. Again, no C4 presence, no anti-plant at all. 2 defender bodies hit the deck. It's just Giddy and Arrow once again in the 2v5 post plant. Jolton will be the first attacker taken out by Giddy as he tries to make his way through anti, but this plant spot is going to be tough for the defenders to try and peel back. Already Arrow's down. It's just Giddy. Another 1v4 situation for a defender. There's coverage from the hatch. Gomez can just let the LMG sing if he would like, but it doesn't even matter. It's Diaz on the front door coverage to finish the round off. And these middle floor defenses have just not been it from late Reg.
Yeah, continuing that pattern of going to the same bomb site twice. It worked the first time in the case of Garage, but heading over here to lobby and press room, that is not going to happen. The one thing it does open up for them is they can head right back to Garage because of, a 2-round gap when they tried lobby back to back. But I suspect if they're able to take Garage here, we'll see them switch it up, maybe go upstairs, maybe go to Split, really make something different of it because clearly don't quite have those lobby defenses down. And KCP are quite good at just avoiding the pulse and avoiding all that intel coming from below. They didn't seem to have much trouble with it at all either time. And I think it's about time late
Defenders, protect your
registration
bombs from being
noticed
defused
that.
by
They will be
attackers.
pulling out the pulse once again, but again, it's not for that lobby site. They'll be headed back downstairs and trying to conduct another stronghold with that use, that added intel that the heartbeat sensor provides. Last time they won around almost single-handedly because of a really good kill with a C4 from Arrow. He removed Inrio from the board at the onset of the round before all of that soft destruction could really get done. And Fish had a good roam as well. I'd really like to see more roam here. This is one of those maps that information denial, what I call that information denial wombo combo, the mute and the Mozzie, so much of that is used on this map, and so much of that is effective on this map because the best way to attack it is to clear from the top down, and that kind of utility hinders that. But we've seen almost none of that from late registration. Instead, we're just seeing Fish on that vigil, on that individual roam, and well, that kind of has hit or miss results. Thankfully for late registration in this round, you could call it a hit. He'll take down Wimpy early on.
That is unfortunate for the Pioneers. Not only is that a stark loss of utility, no more zero cams. Wimpy's doing excellently with setting up that flank watch. He's also the top fragger. He's 6-2. That also loses their heart breach charge. Now, I don't know if Jolton has one. I doubt it because he's Ying. Yep, he's got smokes instead. The Pioneers were already light on hard breach going into a garage attack. I mean, hey, maybe they thought it was top floor. Maybe they just figured they don't need the hard breach or they only need, minimal hard breach. But now they have none. And it's going to be pretty tough to get into the bomb site now that you can't open any hatches, nor can you open any walls. Unfortunately for Giddy, DS was not, in fact, inside B2. He was just outside of it on yellow, but the Iana still takes a load of damage. So, hey, it's not nothing for the C4. And something else that really helped Late Ridge win their previous round, like you said, not only was it the C4 from Arrow, it was also the Electro Claws from Arrow. But that's not really going to be an effect now there's no hard breach. Gomez will finally get a refrag as now Inrio has fallen. And sure, it wasn't a C4 to do the sledge in, but now you no longer have hard breach and you no longer have soft breach. This is going to be real tough for the attack.
Yeah, I don't think there's a world where KCP win this unless we see late registration get over-aggressive for some reason or over-peak when they shouldn't. I think that's what Gomez is going to be relying on as he creeps in from this cafeteria side of things. He'll peek down Visa stairs, and, well, Bear will actually do the exact thing I warned them not to, run in front of that doorway and peek that angle, but thankfully, Gomez got unlucky with that timing, and he was looking the wrong way. Right now, it's a waiting game for KCP. They're hoping for an opening, and late registration are just hoping not to provide that opening. You'll have another nade come down from Diaz, this one into Archives, but he'll actually do more damage to himself than he will to Giddy, who was tucked away in the long hall. And now Jolton will throw a Candela down to pressure him out. Interesting the amount of focus going into clearing out Giddy. Jolton actually will eventually make that drop, but Gomez and Giddy will go 1-for-1, trading each other out. Vivid gets the next kill. That one onto Diaz, leaving a measly Jolton behind against 3. A good flick onto Vivid, who really wanted that kill. Will make this one a little bit more interesting. A 1v2, but only 15 seconds left, and Jolton needs to make a move. The Candela goes out, so he'll push into sight, but Arrow is there watching the doorway to greet him with a bullet. A great round from late registration, solid adjustments, and a great roam from Fish to give them the round.
Yeah, finally, we see good work from Fish. He's kind of had a hit or miss season. Something that Fish, I've seen from Fish, even since the amateur leagues, is that he's very, like you had pointed out, hit or miss. He's either one of the best players in the lobby or he gets opening picked a lot. He was able to get the first 2. Not only was that 0, that was the flank watch dead, that was your only source of hard breach dead. That's already not good for the Pioneers. And then you kill their sledge. No more hammer, no more vertical destruction above, inside of garage. Now, whether Pioneer's initial plan was to go hit lockers or whether that was just the adjustment later in the round, I'm not quite sure, considering, you know, again, they only had a Ying, and that's really the only push you can do with just a single hard breach charge, but Late Reg played around that very well. They didn't really get over-aggressive except for that play from Bear, but you could tell, you know, the Pioneers were not operating off of a lot of intel. After the drone got shot that spotted out Bear, I don't know if you guys noticed, but Gomez had no drones, Jolton had no drones, and both of Diaz's were set up for flank. Because they didn't have Wimpy. If they had still had Wimpy up, you know, maybe they could have used those drones for sight. Maybe they could have actually droned out where Giddy was, because they had no clue. Gomez just happened to go 1-for-1 in trade. So, well played by Late Reg. Kind of curious, you know, utility being brought by the Pioneers and whatnot, but we're not going back to a repeat site. For the first time in this game, we will see Archives Tellers. And Late Reg are playing it pretty interestingly.
Well, we'll finally see a bit of a change here. We'll see late registration go for Archives and Tellers, the split site, instead of repeating a site twice in a row. Of course, winning Garage makes that impossible. So, not electing to go back to Lobby and Press Room. They are going to bring out the Pulse once again, an operator who has been consistent ever since round 1, but this time it is Bear taking up that mantle rather than Giddy, who has been switched over to the smoke. So much of this attack will likely come down in the last few seconds, and that's going to be when the defense will either, you know, win or lose the round as well, when it comes down to pushing into Tellers. And are those C4s going to connect? Is your intel game and maybe pre-play C4 game sufficient enough, or are you going to have to rely on your gun skill and retake that second floor? But until we get to that point, we have to focus on this bottom clear that KCP appear to be doing. They haven't necessarily committed to an Archives attack, but they're certainly indicating that they prefer to go through this from below. They're not clearing the top floor. Instead, everyone entering through Garage and clearing their way over through this east side.
I mean, can you really blame them for wanting to? There's castle barricades, jammers, a shield. You know, there's a whole bunch of utility dedicated to that top floor, so hey, why not just try and leave? Attacking the basement also makes the Pulse of Bear a little bit less effective. You no longer use that for the vertical play. The C4s are not going to be as lethal if they're just being used horizontally. And look at how far KCP have pushed up. Inrio's going to take the first bit of damage. Gomez dies as he tries to make his way in before Inrio refrags from the site. Vivid finds another one, keeping his team in the man advantage, and Inrio doesn't know where this man is. He's floundering for this kill, and he's caught with his gun down in the middle of the site. Vivid has not been refragged just yet. He is holding the fort like the Alamo right now. He and Jolton will exchange words, but still Vivid's able to get away. He is wasting so much time. And where's Jolton's help? Wimpy will finally come down the stairs. He finishes off Giddy. Jolton gets his kill onto Vivid, but Fish refrags, and that puts Jolton in the 1v2 with 1 point of HP. Diffuser in hand. He can start getting this plant down, maybe for a bait, but it's just going to come down to the gunfight, and Fish will get both those last frags. Late Reg will tie up our half 3-3.
That is a hell of a way to recover the half from late registration. I mean, they were looking a little bit stuck, trying to figure out what site they wanted to go to, how they were going to stop KCP in their very efficient clears of this map, but they seem to do just fine in these last 2 rounds, cleaning up their act in a big way and tying up this scoreline at 3-3. Consulate being the ambiguous map that it is, this is a pretty normal scoreline, so it'll come down to how late registration can put things together on their attack, because even though they were the favorites coming into this matchup, I don't know if they looked like the favorites in that first half. It looks like they were the team that was having to make the adjustments and fight from behind, and KCP could still feel like they're in the upper hand. But this is where we'll see a lot of changes on the defensive side. A completely different strategy coming out from KCP, and we can already tell just by that operator selection. 2 operators which we saw very little of on that first half, the Mute and the Mozzie, held by Wimpy and Gomez respectively. Now these 2, they are going to add to Inrio's info denial potential on that Vigil and combine to be a lethal roaming force. One thing you're missing here is someone like a Kaid who could help you delay that garage breach from being opened, because if KCP do want to hold this way, they have to hope late registration walk into this setup and go for that top-down clear, because if they choose to do so, they've got a lot of utility and a lot of manpower to work their way through.
We also see a difference of philosophy when it comes to the Pioneers, or when it comes to the late reg attack. They do favor the Nomad over the Zero, and they will be bringing double hard breach, both Ace and Hibana. So their options not as limited as the Pioneers were. They can go ahead, they can open the wall up really wide, still get the hatches without having to rely on a hard breach charge, even maybe multiple hatches if they really, really want to. They can go ahead and open cafeteria just to make those anchors even more uncomfortable. And they've got Fish on Ash. No Iana, no Zove, just Ash, which is curious. Usually when we see an Ash, it's in combination with either a Zoe or an Iana, because, well, it's not because of the R4C nerf, it's because they took away one of her breaching rounds. Both Iana and Zoe have more, just straight up more utility than the Ash, so it's a little bit odd that they're just bringing her.
Well, as far as this strategy from KCP that I already talked a good bit about, I mean, it's working like a charm, to be honest. I don't know if they did VOD review on late registration, if they suspect that what they're going to be dealing with is a top-down clear, because KCP, they did this top-down clear, but late registration never really defended it, but this time it is the other way around. Late registration are walking right in to KCP's strategy, and it is taking a lot of time off the clock. 90 seconds have been burned, and only now are KCP voluntarily leaving. It's not like they were necessarily under threat at that exact moment, but making a smart time decision to do that, leaving only one player on that top floor to continue that time delay. That'll be Diaz, who is over here in Printer, and he'll work his way up the long hall as late registration work their way finally into the building with 60 seconds to go. This is a lot later in the round than you would like, so it's going to have to be quite an efficient clear if they want to get this done in time.
Yeah, like you said, there's only 53 seconds left, and there's still roamers abound. Gomez will take a ton of damage, but Fish will hit the floor. Wimpy coming off the top floor and now positioning himself into bathroom, gets the first frag of the round, and it's really late, and now you've lost your primary entry. Wimpy does get refragged by Arrow, so, at least late reg keep themselves in the match when it comes to the man count, but the garage wall hasn't even been opened, and all Giddy's going to be able to do is take out the mute jammers before he's C4'd and dusted by Jolton. So the Pioneers still have this man advantage. Finally, the wall is going to be open, but look, late reg had absolutely no idea that Inrio is still in bench, and he's just going to hover here as the Vigil. He knows when the time to strike is going to be necessary. There's still people upstairs watching through the hatch. Vivid is pretty much going to be the only one making this actual execute. He's getting the plant down. Inrio gets one before he's refragged, but wait, where's the anti-plant? Arrow's able to get another kill, and the C4 is too late. Gomez can't deny the plant. He kills the player, but that's it. And that leaves Arrow upstairs in the 1v2. He doesn't have time to rotate all the way outside. He's going to have to make his final stand inside of Piano. It looks like it's going to be Gomez to stay downstairs, Diaz to retake up. He shoots a drone, so Arrow knows he's coming, and here's the attempt. He'll go down. Oh no, the cover's gone. It's a quad for Arrow, but no, he can't find the ace! He gets a little bit too sloppy, exposes himself to the holes, and Gomez will done and dust the round for the defense. What a clutch from the Mozzie. Good tandem play between him and his teammate. And Arrow, so close.
Close, I mean, that is one way of putting it, but I didn't think it needed to be. It looked like KCP were running away with the round from the first 60 seconds. And by some miracle, late registration, a very impressive one, they were able to recover that. And in really good fashion. Arrow, I'm really surprised that he was able to stay alive up there. We had a good trade coming out onto Inrio, who was able to get that kill onto Bear as the Nomad. But it really did come down to that early play. If the round had been a little bit more decisive, I mean, the go-to line for me would have been late registration lost that round on the roam clear, or lack thereof. It took them way too long. They couldn't get past the intel denial that KCP had in place, and when it came to actually utilizing some intel of their own, their game was a little bit weak. After all, they didn't know Inrio was still sitting, 5 feet away from one of their players trying to cover the plant. So, couple of issues there from late registration, a good recovery and a near win in that round, but some really good play from Gomez, stopping the ace from Arrow, making sure that KCP secure a round that it looked like they were going to win the whole time.
Yeah, you can't really put that on Arrow either. You can't be like, Arrow, what are you doing? Because, I mean, it was already a quad kill. It was already a near unwinnable situation, but if he had just peeked the hatch a little bit more carefully, or not the hatch, the floor hole, a little bit more carefully, that could have been the ace in the round win. Because, I mean, Gomez still had, 2 to 3 seconds left on that counter defuse. So, but, things get hectic when it comes to the late round. So late reg now find themselves -1 when it comes to the round count. 4-3, Pioneers leading. Now, I would like to quickly remind the audience of what the desk had highlighted earlier when it comes to the playoff stakes. If Pioneers win this game in regulation, or actually, I think they might be able to win it in OT too. No, okay, they do have to win. Yeah, they have to win in regulation. If Pioneers win in regulation, they will at the very least temporarily hold third. And if Livid lose to Wave Runners in regulation, they make playoffs. However, on the flip side, if late registration even take one singular point in this game, it'll be them headed to playoffs instead. And they're looking like they're on the come up once again. They are vying for that point. All they've got to do is get to OT, and they'll start round 8 off with an opening kill on the Gomez.
Well, I'll double down on that, Harrison. Late registration hold the fate of KCP and Livid in their arms. Because if late registration take a single point, it's not only KCP who can't get in playoffs, but it's Livid as well. So that's why, if you're paying attention in Twitch chat, you've seen iFame, the Livid coach. He's been lurking around rooting for KCP because they depend on a good performance from this team right here. It'll start off weak, at least in this round, but they'll continue their overall advantage, of course. And without Gomez, they'll be forced to retreat and, well, in Rio's case, actually get aggressive here. He'll take a fight downstairs in Visa, winning that one onto Bear and turning this round right back into equal footing. If you're going to lose anybody as far as both of these teams go, your Mozzie and your Nomad aren't bad players to lose. But if you're KCP, that fragging potential that Gomez has been bringing out, 8 kills so far in this one, that is not something you were looking to lose right now. Diaz hoping to pull things back, though. He's still tucked up here in console office. He's waiting to make his move. Like last round, waiting until late registration are so focused on the vertical that maybe he could go for a little bit of a surprise.
You start making his way over towards Connector and into Pro. There's someone lurking on that Visa staircase right by the doorway. It's Fish, unable to cut off the Aruni for now. Diaz is playing over towards the window, watching, waiting for someone to expose themselves outside. The Capitão's utility will go in. Diaz gets cut down, so there's no more vertical presence for the defense, and the plant attempt should come in soon if they want to act upon Vivid's utility, but no. It's just the lone fire arrow. Giddy still holding down Spiral Stairs. He'll be cut down by Inrio. Jolton gets the kill on the primary planter. Arrow will refrag. Sorry, it's actually Arrow with the diffuser, but here's the upstairs retake. Wimpy takes him out, and downstairs, the Jaeger, who is able to run wild in jungle thanks to Giddy losing his fight, will get the final 2, and the Pioneers will extend their lead 5-3.
That's another good round from KCP. Came a little close in the end, as late registration have been really good at bringing these ones back and actually making them pretty dicey at the end of the day. But KCP are going to win that one out just simply by, again, really good flexibility on the defensive side. They showed it on the first half. They can move around and be fluid on the attacking side. But on defense, right there, we saw it yet again. We saw how KCP were willing to retake that top floor. They were willing to maybe get a bit more aggressive than late registration actually were ready for. And, well, that worked. They denied that vertical coverage and denied the plant from actually ever going down.
Not only did they deny the vertical coverage, but what was up with the Capitão? So they sent out one fireball, right? I don't know, I don't know where it was, but they just sent out a fireball. It did damage to, I think it was the smoke playing the bathroom shield. I would imagine that's where it was situated, just because of who was taking damage. And then that was kind of it. We didn't see any other bolts from Vivid. We didn't see any push off of that utility. And the entire push fell flat because Giddy's flank watch in Spiral, in jungle, was unsuccessful. That allowed Inrio to just peek the front door. The plant attempt from Arrow, I mean, I thought it was Vivid with the diffuser. It turned out the plant attempt wasn't even denied. It was never even started. So late reg with a pretty curious attack there. Bear going down really early and not able to set up proper air jabs too, allowing for the retake of upstairs, was also not great from the attack. So if late reg, they want their playoffs hopes to stay alive, they got to do something better than that. They got to be way more consistent. We know how consistent they can be, but right now on Consulate, we're just not seeing that.
Locate and defuse bombs.
I'm wondering when that change is going to come in on their attacking side. I mean, we saw on their defense, they were adaptable, and they did change things up when they needed to, but we're not seeing huge changes, at least between these first 2 rounds. We are going to see at least one operator change, a pretty massive one at that for round number 9. We're seeing the Dokkaebi come into play here from Vivid. Now, this is someone I did not expect to see, nor did I expect in sort of a good adaptation. Why the Dokkaebi, you might ask? And, well, I wish I had an answer. Someone like a Yana may be a better pick here. You have all of that intel, you have the nades, and you have a really good gun, but maybe Vivid just prefers the DMR and is hoping that there's enough bulletproof cameras in play that hacking those cameras could give them some intel, trying to figure that out and get to the bottom of it, because generally we've been seeing teams favor that Yana in recent play days, and that's not something that late registration have really given much credit to. So far, we haven't really seen how that's going to pan out. Still a lot of this round to go as late registration, at least at the onset, will choose to work their way in from the west. And, well, by all intents and purposes, they are going straight for this basement site. They've got their eyes on Archives. They're already going to start bearing down and pressuring KCP as much as they can.
Yeah, you know, similar to how late reg were defending Archives, there's a whole slew of utility upstairs. Shields, Aruni gates, castle barricades, all that stuff. And if you're the attack, well, that's kind of difficult to deal with. You don't want to have to trudge through that. So, hey, just hit the basement. Hopefully for late reg's sake, it's going to work out more successfully than it did for KCP, but already Gomez is going to start things with a double kill. Jolton takes out Fish. It is all up to Vivid and Bear. There's one refrag down on the site, but Bear is all the way upstairs. It's just Vivid, and Diaz is going to be able to get the flank because he's being held from blue. That means it's just Bear who is tasked with holding down Visa, as every single site pusher has gone down. Inro makes his presence known, tussling with Bear. He'll lose the fight, but it's Diaz coming back upstairs to finish the round off. Curious downstairs attack. It looked like they just tried to bum rush into the basement, and late reg were really caught with their pants down, especially thanks to that opening 2-piece from Gomez.
Yeah, I mean, that was not the adaptation we were looking for, put simply. Not sure what the thought process was there. Maybe they're looking to catch them off guard. Maybe they're looking to add that element of surprise that maybe they felt they've been lacking up to this point. But I think the only surprise they ended up finding was I guess the realization that that was so bad, and how quickly that went to the dumps. But they're not out of this yet. They've got 3 rounds to work with. 3 rounds to bring this one back, but KCP now sit on match point. And after completing 3 rounds in a row, a very clean defensive rotation, late registration have their work cut out for them. There is no doubt about that. We're going to head down to Garage here, the first site that KCP were able to win. A site that really came down to the lack of late registration roam clear. KCP, they appear to be bringing the same setup, substituting. They're bringing out the Kaid. I'm trying to think of who was in his place last time. Could have been the Smoke from Jolton. Either way, it is a same
defense?
Mute and Mozzie heavy setup. That's the point here, right? So we're going to have to see late registration work their way through that. And, well, we all know how that's gone before. Mira, actually, as I'm remembering now. So that was the setup. And, right, we saw the Mira downstairs. Pretty default Mira place there. But overall, this one's going to come down to this top floor clear, and if late registration can get this done, because if they can't, I mean, I think we'll know who wins this entire map from there.
Bear's also off Nomad on 0. I don't know how much good that is going to do or what that change is supposed to elicit, but that's the change they're bringing. Early C4 is going to miss. I mean, maybe they want that hard breach charge, you know. I don't know why they would, because they have double hard breach, but I'm just kind of, what's the word? I completely forgot the term. Grasping at straws. That's what it is. Another C4 from Wimpy. 2 very early C4s being wasted by the defense completely. But as Wimpy moves back through, shotgun in hand, he'll hit the first pump, but not the second or third. Fish gets the entry. DS now trapped in this corner. Fish knows exactly where he is. He'll likely call over a teammate to help him soon, especially as Vivid will find another, and that is your only remaining C4 now off the board for Pioneers, and there's no smoke because of how heavy the roam setup is. So if this actually gets down to the execute phase, there's not a lot the Pioneers are going to be able to do about that planter.
Yeah, talk about execute phase. I mean, we're about there. I mean, there's nobody on site for KCP. Finally, you're going to have somebody rotate around, but late registration are dismantling this defense. They've taken down 3 players on this top floor hold, and Diaz finally rotating back. At least there's some solace in that he's near the objective, but I don't think Inrio is anywhere to be found. He's now working his way on this first floor, and he's going to get immediately mowed down by Giddy, and well, in a 1v5, Diaz is going to have to find some sort of miracle. He'll tuck himself in this close corner by the yellow stairs and just pray for the biggest blunder in Siege history, but that is not going to happen. Vivid knows exactly where he's positioned. He'll swing the corner. A little bit of a pre-fire will happily give late registration the round. I'm not sure what we just witnessed from KCP, but that was not the same really stalwart top floor hold that we'd seen before.
Yeah. It just looked way better, the clear, that is, from late reg. All their bases were covered. They didn't seem as stunted by the drone denial being brought out either. Fish was able to kind of walk up yellow. It was really Fish winning that fight against Wimpy. So not only was there not a lot of fallback from the defense, they had less men upstairs. The cutoffs were actually in place this time from late reg as well. And that, you know, all just kind of came together. Really good roam clear.
Defenders, protect your bombs from being defused.
But, you know, I would like to remind everyone, that is 1 round for late reg in the past 4 that we've played in the second half. Pioneers only need 1 more. They need a singular point to keep their playoffs hopes alive. Sure, you know, their destiny will be out of their hands, but still, to keep their playoffs hopes alive. And to end late regs. So there's still a hell of a lot of work for the attackers to do. And we're on lobby now. It looked like late reg were going to have the upper hand. They had the vert control, they had the setup, they had the Capitao utility going through, but it was Inrio making a big play in jungle that really shut the round out. I mean, you can't reasonably rely on that if you're the Pioneers, but still I have to imagine some adjustment being made from the attack.
Also remember that late registration, they only need OT. They only need the 6 rounds. So if they're allowed 1 more round, it will become match point for both teams, not just KCP anymore. Because if late registration get to 6, yes, this match will actually technically continue, but it will be without really any meaning for the playoff picture. KCP would be out of it if they cannot secure this in regulation. So they'll be looking to tidy things up and get this done with as soon as possible. A possible C4 from Gomez here could be quite potent, but he'll continue to keep that in pocket for now as Bear sits around the other side. But Inrio, who was momentarily misdroned, will give away his position, trying to shoot that out, and that will give Bear the chance to cut off this rotation angle that Inrio will likely work with. He'll not give up this position just yet, though. He will stay here in Tellers and hopefully, at least for the KC Pioneers, try to contest any sort of late registration push in through Visa itself, because right now, that push is pretty stalled out. And KCP, while not being too aggressive, they're doing just enough to make sure late registration do not feel safe pushing into the building. Finally, they'll do that. You'll have Giddy now pushed up into break room and printer, and he'll work his way up to the long hall. But this is a bit later in the round than I think they would like. Now they've got to contend with all of this top floor pressure, and they don't have a ton of time to actually get it cleared.
We're looking at about 1:15 on the board now, and finally late reg are going to start to clear pro. I believe just now opening the Bosco wall. Wimpy will hug it. He's got the rotate at his back as well, so he can still pressure long. He'll actually end up pushing out of pro. There's no one in copy to pressure him, and he'll get a free pick on the Fish coming in from Coffin. So the Wimpler starting things off on what could possibly be the
bomb
final
has been
round. The
located.
attackers no longer having their Zofia, and it's a one-man disadvantage for them. Arrow still outside the main door on Overwatch. Giddy, now that he has no partner, is very tentative about pushing through the remaining top floor, and it looks like the attackers are just going to start to stack up for the execute. Bear still holding down this flank. It's going to mainly be Vivid and Arrow with that front door, but as the Zero tries to get a free pick on someone pinged in circle, he's got no clue about the man sitting jungle. There'll be another refrag from Vivid, though. He'll just go right through the Aruni gate, but he's choking in that gas, and what might have just jumped the gun a little bit could seal the fate of the attackers. Arrow's taking tons of damage, too. He'll be a second player downed by the gas. What is this execute? Only 5 seconds left, and they just lost to a single gas canister. Giddy needs to find the 1v1, but Inrio is just prone in the corner, and what a way to lose out on your playoffs chances, walking through barbed wire into a gas canister and losing 2 players. Pioneers shut down the playoffs hopes of Late Reg.